have a bottle of wine here, which has just been released in the Ontario market. And when it first arrived, I had forgotten that you had actually called it No Name, and I thought it was perhaps some kind of sample with No Name just scribbled on it. And then I was looking at it, going, "Oh no, I know this one." And there's a fascinating story behind this particular wine. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that? Because you've been making this wine since the early 2000s?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, No Name is for sure one of the most iconic wine we have today on the market. It's a label which is quite different compared to the other very traditional and historical label that we have, but it's
Yeah.
actually also one of the last product that we release on the market. The very first production was in 2008 and was a no-name vintage of 5. And yes, there's a quite interesting story behind the label. We always say that the no name is the story of a problem that moves us towards a new opportunity. So after 5 generations of Borgogno family, we had 2 generations of Boschis family, since Cesare, the guy that
Yeah.
decided to forget a lot of battles on a side, didn't have any children. So the winery passed into the end of the Boschis family, and finally in 2008, the current ownership, the Farinetti family, bought the winery. When they bought the winery, they of course hereditated many barrels of wine, any kind, Barbera, Dolcetto, Fresa, but also Nebbiolo. Especially Nebbiolo had to become Barolo. So we had big barrels of Nebbiolo that were refining in these Slavonian oak
Mm.
barrels. So what happened? In Italy, before writing the word Barolo on the label, we have to send samples to a commission that based on 2 different parameters decide if the wine has the characteristics to be called Barolo.
Yeah.
First parameter are chemical analysis. So they analyze residual sugar, alcohol content, acidity, and so on. And the second parameter is quite simple tasting. So like you are doing in this moment. So they take the glass, they look at the color, they smell it, and they try the wine. What happened? At that time, we had this huge barrel full of Nebbiolo, the grape, had to become Barolo, the appellation, which was too big to be bottled in one solution. So as you probably saw, we are still a quite artisanal winery,
Yes.
because the
Yeah.
aim is to work more on the quality than on the quantity. And so let's say the bottling process is something that goes in a quite an artisanal way. So it's not a big factory. So since we had this huge barrel and we couldn't bottle it in one day, we needed to split this barrel into smaller. But doing that, we created from one lot 2 different lots, because
Yeah.
but that means 2 samples to be sent to this commission that needed to approve the wine as a Barolo. What happened? We sent those 2 samples. The wines went to the analysis phase, and everything was just perfect. Residual sugar, alcohol content, acidity, everything that a Barolo should have. Then both samples went to the tasting phase. First sample, they open, they smell, they look at the color, they try it, perfect, Barolo, certified. Then was the time of the second sample. Everything was perfect from a tasting point of view and from a smell as well point of view. But according to them, the color was not rich enough, was not dark enough.
Okay. But it was the same barrel.
But exactly, it was the same barrel, and that's what we told them. And in a way, they were surprised like us, because they didn't expect that. So they said, okay, let's do like this. We give you 2 more weeks to represent new samples. This was probably the weirdest part of the story, because when a wine is made, is in the bottle, is finished, technically there's nothing you can do to change the color, to increase the color. So 2 weeks of what? 2 weeks for doing what? The only way that you have to increase the color of a wine like a Nebbiolo, which is typically quite light in color, is to add other varieties. For example, in Piedmont, we have Fresa, we have Dolcetto, we have Barbera, which are quite higher in anthocyani, so in color. And so that could have been an option. But the point is that Barolo is a wine made 100% Nebbiolo grape.
Yeah.
This is written on the law, on the disciplinary, so you cannot add other varieties. But it looks strange because in some way it was like they opened for us a door to do something which is not allowed, which is quite weird because they are the people in charge of controlling that people don't do that. So the story is that after 2 weeks, we just represented the same samples, but unfortunately, we obtained the same identical results. So one sample Barolo and the other one, it wasn't.
Which is impossible, right? I mean, it
is impossible. Exactly. Let's say that at that moment, we were quite worried for a simple thing, because not being a Barolo, they declassified that sample, so that barrel, from Barolo to a lower appellation, the Langhe Nebbiolo. But you can understand that that could be an economical disaster for us. So the Farinetti family has just bought the winery, investing with a big investment. Bought all the vineyards. We bought new barrels, new tanks for the fermentation, concrete tanks for the fermentation, and so on. And then the first vintage of Barolo to be released on the market, a part of it is just Langhe Nebbiolo now and not Barolo anymore. It's easy to understand that the price of a Langhe Nebbiolo is much lower than a Barolo, because you have to follow less strict rules. And so it's typically, the price of the Barolo is typically at least the double of a Langhe Nebbiolo. So one night, Andrea Farinetti, which is the son of the owner and at the same time is also the winemaker, went to his father and said, Papa, Dad, we have a problem. And he told his father the story which just happened. And Oscar, the father, think about that for a while, and he said, Andrea, no worries, I have a solution. Since this wine for us is a Barolo, but for the commission is not, and since we know the story of this wine probably better than them, let's call it senza nome, which means without a wine. But then after a while, they think and they said, but senza nome makes sense just for us as Italian. So let's call it no name. Right. But as you can see on the label, little on the bottom, we wrote etichetta di protesta, which means label of protest. Exactly. Which is for us, of course, a peaceful protest against the Italian bureaucracy. As you probably know, Italy is one of the most bureaucratic countries in the world, and the wine world is not an exception. Think that if we have to look at other major European countries, when we talk about wine, of course, we can say that the three main are for sure Italy, Spain, and France. But if we look at Spain, they have only one entity, one body, which manage all the procedures in the wine. If we look at France, they have 2. If we look at Italy, we have more than 10. This means for us, as you can see, a lot of bureaucracy. Sometimes we have to spend more time on paperwork, documents, and things like that than on the wine. And let me say that this is quite insane for a certain point of view, because our name is winemakers. So our daytime should be spent 99% on the winemaking and not for sure on bureaucracy and papers. But The good news is that the market love that story.
Oh, that's a great story, right? It's such a brilliant story, and I think people like that kind of cocking a snoot against the bureaucracy behind the labeling of wines such as this. So it's basically a declassified Barolo.
Exactly. So if we look at the very first vintage of 5, we are actually talking, if you find, let's say on the market, a Barolo of 5 from Borgogno, but no name of 5, it's just the same wine, no differences. After that, since again, the market was quite enthusiastic about this wine and they wanted more, let's say that we were forced to keep making it by declassifying every year a part of our annual production of Barolo to Langhe Nebbiolo to keep making the no name. Now the wines are slightly different because it's easy to understand that it didn't make any sense to keep making two same wines, selling them for 2 different prices and labeling them with 2 different labels. So what happened? Today, we usually say that the no name is like our baby Barolo. Baby Barolo means that we work with lower temperatures for the fermentation, usually between 25, 26 degrees against the 29, 30 of a Barolo Classico. Means that the macerations after the alcoholic fermentation is shorter. So no more than 8-10 days.
So there's a little less extraction than for the
less extraction, exactly. But lower temperatures, which means let's say cooking a little bit less the skins at the same time extracting less, and then also a little bit shorter aging. We're talking about 2 years in big Slavonian oak barrels, plus 1 year in the barrel before releasing it on the market.
So it's a much more approachable wine from an early age, right? Because as soon as I put my nose in here, it's got that real vibrant fruit character, which you don't usually get on Barolo proper. It's a really like this beautiful red fruit on this. It's just absolutely gorgeous, and you can tell it's made for drinking now, right?
Now, yeah, exactly. So yeah, the result is a wine which is typically more approachable, a little more fruit forward, and it helps us in a way because sometimes there's a problem on the Barolo. The Barolo sometimes is that wine that you're never sure if it's the right time to open it.
Of course, yep.
Most of the questions they ask me when I travel at fairs or when I have like winemaker dinners and so on, most of the questions are, how long can I age this bottle? I have this Barolo at home. When I have to open the bottle? Well, this is a problem sometimes because, of course, the aim of a producer is always that the customer which buy the wine, then they open it and they don't storage it on a side forever.
Yeah.
But the no name don't have this problem at all because, as we said, is a wine which is definitely more approachable, and you just take your opener and you open and you enjoy.
Well, it tastes quite good at 9:30 in the morning. It's no, seriously, because not every wine does. I mean, I quite often do these tastings at this time of the day, and when I was back in the business, quite often I do my very best tastings at this time of the morning. But not all wines taste good at this time of the morning. I used to come over for Nebbiolo Prima, and that's pretty hardcore how much you're tasting there. And you would go through all the different stages, the different levels, the hierarchy of the wines, right? But some of them were just brutal to have first thing in the morning, especially brand, like incredibly young Nebbiolo-based wines. This is actually quite palatable. Like the tannins have been nicely managed. They're not too aggressive. You don't get that grip, right? It's really quite pleasant. I'm not sure if you're aware, and I was just thinking about this. No Name is actually a brand name over here, a discount brand name for one of the supermarkets.
They told me this 3-4 days ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, when I was in Montreal.
Yes, yeah,
And
yeah.
but fortunately, they told me that it looks quite different. The logo, let's say,
Yes,
is
yeah,
quite
yeah.
different because honestly, we don't like
You
to
associate yourself
share
with it.
a discount next to Borgogno because
Yeah,
Borgogno is actually the opposite of a discount, but not
of
because
course.
of the
Yeah.
price, but because of the historicness, the quality, the high-hand profile.
It's interesting because normally the LCBO are very, very strict, or just laws in Canada are very strict regarding brand names and the like. So it's interesting they didn't have any problem with
Not
this.
at
It's
all.
good. It's great.
Not at all. No, no, no. It's
Now, you said you work as an ambassador for the winery all over the world. So you have tasted this wine across many vintages in many different locations around the world. So you've had all of these wine dinners, all these wine events. What are the kind of best pairings that you've had with this wine over the years?
So, of course, it could depend a little bit on the vintage because, of course, there are vintages which are a little bit more approachable because maybe we had average lower temperatures. The 19 you are tasting is one of those. 16 was just another one which was a little bit more approachable. 17, for instance, was quite a warm and dry vintage, so the result it results in a wine a little bit more, let's say, large in the mount and
Yes.
less vertical, for sure. But talking about pairings and being a Nebbiolo, for sure is a wine that need something with an important taste to support, to match the wine. So I could say that with the no name, we could cover a lot of different kind of pasta dishes for sure. Typically, dishes a little bit more important, but
Like
not
with a
only.
with a kind of like almost like a meat sauce type.
Exactly, exactly. We call it ragu here
Yes, yeah.
in Italy, and you know, typically a wine from a region match very well with the food of the same region. One of the most popular pasta in our area is a egg-made pasta, which is called tagliarine, which is a long pasta, but it's
Yeah,
not
I know.
like
Yeah.
spaghetti, yeah, which is, let's say, hard, but is soft. And with a ragu, so a little bit of tomato and some meat. It's amazing. Another dish which is still local, which is quite good with the no name, is for sure the carne cruda, the raw meat,
Yeah.
which is another dish of the tradition in our
Yes.
area. But for sure, one of my best pairings is with a little bit more important taste, like mushroom, truffle, for
Of
sure,
course,
because
yeah.
it's just the way the place we are just in the place where the truffle grow. And I would say for sure important meat like stacks like but also goat. So I would say dishes with that can afford in a way this wine.
I'm thinking as I'm tasting this right now and thinking about dishes that I've had when I've been in Piemonte. I would pair this in a perfect world with like a wild boar ragu.
Yeah, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, another way to try this wine is also on its own,
Yeah.
maybe during the summer, something that I personally, and we generally like to do, is to chill the wine a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
because, so if you have a very tannic wine and you chill it, then the tannic sensation comes out and it's not pleasant anymore. But being, as we said before, a wine with quite soft, silky, smooth tannins, you can chill it a little bit and you can drink it as an aperitivo as well. This is definitely something that we do many times, especially
Yeah.
during summer.
Well, This came straight from my basement, and I'm very lucky. The basement is incredibly consistent temperature-wise throughout the year, so it's the perfect temperature right now because it's got that slight chill on it, and it's really, really a gorgeous wine. Um, Now, interestingly enough, you said that with the Barolo, people are always asking you, when should they be drinking it? Is there any potential for aging the no-name?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. Of course, given the characteristic we just discussed,
Yeah.
it's not a wine as a Barolo. So when we talk about our Barolo Classico, we talk about a wine that could be aged for 25,
Yep.
30, sometimes 35 years. Then if you go up in more, let's say, in higher selections, like our three single vineyards or to our Barolo Riserva, which is the maximum level, there you can reach even 60, 70 years. As we said at the beginning, we sell still today directly from the cellar vintage 1961. And those wines are amazing. But talking about the no-name, I would say that between 10 and 15 years is when the wine expresses its best.
Interesting.
That doesn't mean that the wine cannot age for longer, because we have the acidity which sustains the wine and works as a natural preservative to the wine to age. We have, of course, tannic structure, even if it's quite smooth. But in my opinion, I would say, yes, between 10 and 15 years is the best expression of this wine.
Which is the best of both worlds. It's approachable now, and you could also lay it down and taste it in 10, 15 years. Fantastic.
Exactly.
Now, I have to come and visit you in Barolo at some point. The last time I was there, I was visiting my friend Valentina Abona. You, of course, know her, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it was the big music festival that you have there in the square, the Music Food Wine Festival.
You're talking about Collisioni?
Correct, yes. And I was there the year that Mick Hucknall from Simply Red was playing. And I have hair like that. And on the street, a whole load of people saw me getting my picture taken with Valentina, and they assumed that I was Mick Hucknall. And everybody started trying to take pictures of me, thinking I was that guy. Which was quite the experience. But a great time was had, that's for sure. It's a fantastic place. The next time you're over in Ontario, let's share a glass of no name, perhaps something else, and perhaps I'll see you over in Barolo at some point.
I hope so. I hope so. I'm more than happy if you can come visit us. Then I can show you everything, all the historicness, even if you know already a lot of things, but it's never enough.
Any excuse. Thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution, Andrea, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.